One of the things that we've gotten question on is just as shelter in place has been extending sort of sense of progression of abilities, right? Understandably so, folks stopped um, services, things like that. What can parents do right now when they start seeing things like that? How do they think through about restarting services or sort of a stopgap until shelter in place is lifted or they're comfortable kind of back into services in person?
Yeah. So if hopefully I'm answering what you asked, but if not, I'll just answer the question that I wanted you to ask.
Sure.
So I think that everybody's programming has been interrupted at least a little bit to some extent right now. It's been interrupted, it's been changed a little bit, whether that's the staff with whom they're working or if it's gone all to telehealth or the schedule has changed. But for some people, it's been interrupted dramatically. And I think particularly for those people, as they think about like, what do I do? I mean, some people have made the choice to really just isolate and not even have one therapist working with their kids. So what do they do during that time? And I think anytime there's a big interruption in services, not small ones, but big interruptions in services, regression is always a concern. So if you can't continue with your program as it was before, and hopefully you were happy with what was going on before, if you can't do that exact same thing, say through telehealth or switching from clinic-based services to in-home services, if those things aren't an option for you, I think one of the main considerations should be thinking about maintenance or sort of holding the line. Right. So if it's just you, if it's just your family trying to continue your ABA program, you should really be thinking about maintenance. There's just no way to keep up the progress that your team was making. You had one or more trained professionals solely dedicated to your child with no other concerns that you have right now. You have your job and laundry and meals and all that other stuff. You can't keep that up. So you really want to think about maintaining the progress that had been made until services can be resumed. And part of that
Can I add? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry,
You
just
go
one
ahead.
more quick thing, Paula. Part of that consideration should be really thinking about the dimensions of your program. So the three of the main dimensions involve the comprehensiveness of your program, or sort of the curriculum. So your team was probably working on social skills and language and academics and trying to reduce any inappropriate behavior that might have been there. And so you have to think about, can you keep doing all of those things? And probably what that means is reducing your curriculum, really deciding which of those things are super important to continue. Because one of the other dimensions you have to consider is the volume. So just the opportunities for practice. And if you had an intensive program with a team, they were practicing a lot. And it's probably not feasible to recreate that amount of practice by yourself, or even, if you have other family members that will help. So by reducing some of your curriculum, you can keep up some of the volume. But the third dimension that you really don't want to change is the quality. So how and when to prompt, how and when to reinforce, how and when to ignore. By reducing some of the curriculum and some of the volume, you can hold the line on that quality so that the things that you are still teaching and trying to maintain, you're reinforcing when you should and not reinforcing when you shouldn't, and prompting when you should and not prompting when you shouldn't. So that those things that you're trying to maintain, you make sure that you hold that line until you can recover your services back to where they were. Okay, Paula, I'm done.
I was going to add just that if you cannot have your son or daughter sitting in front of a computer and engaging in an activity, we get it, right? Like we all have kids at home. It's a disaster. There's so many things happening. But I would say try at least to find some time that you can connect with your team and get input on how to run those maintenance trials. It's a little bit of training, right? Like use everything that you can. what I would say. If you have those authorized hours, be creative and try to use it as many as you can in order to maintain the care.
Okay, Tracy, anything to add?
Sorry about that. I put myself on mute. No, I don't think so. I think that for parents, it's important to prioritize the few things that are most important to you. And I would recommend you consider your routines, when your meal time is, when your sleep time is, and those kinds of things. When do you get exercise during the course of a day? Because exercise will also help with sleep, the sleep routine we were talking about earlier. So those kinds of things are key in my mind. Pick those one or two areas. So
Okay.
probably not going to use that if the hub's walking around in the background.
Well, this is actually, it's a great segue. So, if you had to give one piece of advice to parents right now, what would it be? I mean, we're all parents here, so how are you guys keeping?
Lower your expectations. Figure out what matters most. Focus on the sleep. Sleep's very important. Focus on some exercise, even if it's just in the backyard, running around, or as we might call it, NVI, motor imitation. Those kinds of things can all help, I think, lighten our spirits. And I think if you're a parent, the other thing I might say about challenging behavior is capitulate immediately. If your child engages in a behavior to get something or to stop you turning off the television or a movie, and you assess your internal resources and you don't have it in you to go the distance, capitulate immediately. It's just not worth it right now.
Right.
So I
Toby,
think I would
Paula?
get back to what I was just mentioning. I would really try and look at my program as a whole and decide which of these things do I feel like I can continue on my own, and try and do those few things well instead of trying to do all of them and just, like Tracy was saying, it's tough for everybody right now. You try and do them all yourself, it's just setting yourself up to get super frustrated. So I guess that's the one piece of advice that I would give to people. Try and focus on a handful of things that you feel like you can do well, and try and do them proactively at times when everybody, it's not in the middle of a meltdown, it's not in response to some inappropriate behavior or frustration. It's like built in at 2 o'clock during the day. We're all great. Let's work on this right now.
Great. Paula?
I think my advice would be to first work on yourself. It is hard right now, and if you are in the right mind, the next step would be to plan. So plan what are the times of the day that you can really have someone else take care of other things that you need to do, so you can focus on this. And then once you decide and you have organized and planned your time, I say use the most of the resources you can. Like if it is telehealth, it's telehealth. Phone call, it's phone call. But be thoughtful and plan ahead. And then, yes, don't think it's going to be the same. You're not going to be able to have the same program, the same way. So change your own expectations, right? That's the piece of working on yourself, I think.
Well, thank you so much for all of your input and for the parents that joined us. Thanks for joining us. And if you have a question for the amazing panel, feel free to email us at info@kadian.com.
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you for the next one.
Yes,
Stay
thank
safe
you.
out there.
Bye.